Hey y'all, as you can see, I'm wearing my crown. Um, I'm going to attempt something here that, this is probably a really bad idea, but I'm already here, so here we go. I'm going to be, I'm going to be vulnerable, and talk about my life. I'm going to talk about my life a little bit, and where I'm at right now. And if I don't want to use this, I won't use it. Or if I do, maybe I'll put it on my cringe channel, Joe Person. Uh, we'll see. I guess if you're watching this, you'll know where I decided to post it. So I beg for your indulgence because I'm not. I don't have anything prepared. I just felt the need to sort of not vent. I really don't believe in venting. And by the way, this crown is meant ironically, in case you were unaware, in case you couldn't have guessed that. I was in Burger King earlier and I thought, hey, I'll snatch that crown for this video that I'm thinking about doing, because it would be perfect. And here I am. So, the last 10 years have not been easy for me, I wouldn't say. The last 10 years have been somewhat of a disappointment. I would say that where I was 10 years ago and where I am now is, well, I'm not right now. I'm not where I thought I would be if I thought about where I would be now 10 years ago, or let's say 11 or 12 years ago. I think the high point for me was the high point of my my adult life, or my career, or whatever. I guess my career, how I thought it was going to go, was probably between 2010 and 2013. It was in that time period that and here's where things are going to get, like I said. This might get too cringy. This might get a little too. I mean, I'm gonna render my soul bare before you. So, in some ways, I'm probably gonna hold back, frankly, because there's some things that I'm not gonna tell y'all. You're just gonna have to wonder what those are. But I when I was writing for AlternativeRight.com, I started writing for them in 2010. Afterwards, I became an editor, and for a time, I was I regularly took part in a podcast with Richard Spencer, whose name is now one that lives in infamy, and who I have, my once proximity to him is has rendered my own career, you know, difficult, at least when it comes to prestige type jobs or whatever. But anyway, I really felt during that time period, 2010, 2011, 2012, into 2013. I felt like I had hitched my wagon to this thing, this movement that was exciting to be a part of, and that it was going places. This is how I felt at the time. And I felt that I could, that the fact that Richard Spencer, who is a man of influence, and obviously a man of means, had let me come on board, and not just come on board, but be be an editor, be someone whom he regularly conducted podcasts with, along with Colin Liddell. I sort of thought this means that we're going places together. Like, I can hitch my wagon to this alternativeright.com thing. Is going places. And what you have to understand was, at the time, the phrase alternative right or alt-right had not assumed the kind of connotations that it has today. Today, where it basically is just a slur if you say someone's alt-right. Saying that someone is alt-right is, saying that they've gone off the deep end and they're basically undesirable, and ought to be shunned. That is not the meaning that the phrase had in those days. Of course, it was lesser known, but at the same time, it was drawing a lot of eyes. There were a lot of readers. There were a lot of people coming on board, reading Alternative Right, alternativeright.com in its initial incarnation, reading countercurrents.com, reading, I don't know, there were probably other sites at the time, other internet gatherings that were affiliated with the alternative right or the alt-right. And at the time, it was a big tent. There were a lot of people with a lot of different beliefs and opinions. Now, were there people who you would categorize as National Socialists or Nazis, as the slur goes? If we cared about slurs uniformly, then Nazi is actually a slur. But we don't care about slurring the Nazis, so we just call them Nazis. But were there people like that on board? Yes. I mean, amongst the readership, yes. That was not me. That was not, at the time, I didn't think that was Richard Spencer. And that was definitely not Colin Liddell. And I don't really know if we had, it was that was sort of like the outer ring of, it was the Daily Stormer. And of course, amongst the readership, there were a lot of people who said, this alt-right thing, it's soft. There were, you're just too soft on these things that are really important, and we should name the J's and so forth. Yes, of course, that element was there. But at the time, it was simply a place for people who did not identify as liberal, and who would categorize themselves as being on the right, but who were not on the right, or not on the establishment right. And who touched the third rail of the sort of things that the establishment right didn't like to talk about, whether it was feminism, the baleful influence of feminism, or whether it was race realism, which is not the same thing as Nazism, or whether it was the decline of the West. And all of these kinds of things. There were Catholics, there were Orthodox, there were pagans, and there were probably like atheists on board. It was a big tent in those days. Granted, there were some people who were like trying to push the big tent into a certain place, into a certain categorization, and granted, they were not kicked out because we were not a movement. Like from my point of view, from my perspective, being a big tent meant being a big tent. It meant welcoming people in, even if you didn't agree, even if you thought that they were quite off the mark, even if you strongly differed with them in a lot of ways. So I was never sympathetic to National Socialism. But did I know people who were, and was I friendly with them? Yes, sure, I was. Do I regret it? No. Because I don't know, like why should I regret? Why should I shun someone for having a belief that doesn't accord with mine necessarily, if we're in the same boat together, And if generally speaking they've been nice to me, and they generally speaking are seem to be gracious sorts of people, and like. Not to do this, think about it if it went the other way thing, because I know that can get old. But do you like if you're a liberal, if you're on the left, did you shun people when you found out they were communists? No, probably not. If you found out that a friend of yours was, thought that the Soviet Union was a good idea, but just wasn't implemented correctly, or I don't know, had communistic ideas in one sense or another. If you were a liberal, you didn't think to yourself, "Oh, I've got to keep my distance from that kind of person." So if that's not the case, if that's not your credo, if that's not incumbent upon you, if you're a liberal, why should it be incumbent upon me as a conservative to shun people whose ideology I don't agree with, and I might even quite strongly disagree with, because I've never favored totalitarian. I've always been down on totalitarianism in whatever guise it might have. But it's dumb if you say we're we're in the same boat. If you don't recognize, well, look, we're all in the same boat. They hate us all, and they're going to call us all Nazis. It's going to happen. So anyhow, no regrets about that whatsoever. So. So that was a time period when I was I really was doing. I was working. I mean, I actually had a regular job, which paid quite well, or not quite well. What am I saying? I've never had a job that's paid quite well, but it paid well enough And, I was also writing for Alternative Right and participating in activities relevant to alt-right stuff. And in December of 2011, I was able to travel to South Africa on the dime of NPI, Richard Spencer's organization, his think tank, I guess you would call it, to visit with the Afrikaner, some of the Afrikaner people, visit Orania in South Africa, the Afrikaner, sort of mini Afrikaner homeland, so that I could write an article for what Richard Spencer had in mind as a print journal called Radix, which never quite it never really succeeded in the way that Richard hyped it up. And I came to understand over time that Richard Spencer was not somebody who he was somewhat fickle minded. He was not somebody who was going to I again it's a matter, it's a point of some shame for me that I thought for a time, uh, you know, I'm affiliated with Richard Spencer. Richard Spencer's got clout. I'm not. I don't agree with him on everything, but that doesn't matter to him and doesn't matter to me. He's like this Nietzschean pagan. I don't know. That's his philosophy. I'm a traditional Catholic. That's my take on things. But he liked me at the time and liked my stuff and liked me enough to fund my trip to South Africa to write this article for this journal, which never quite materialized in the form that it was promised to materialize. But that was a part of Richard Spencer's the unfortunate fact that Richard Spencer was to some degree a flake, or I don't know if I would say a con artist exactly, but I would say a flake. I would say he was somebody who didn't really who was mercurial, who didn't really who liked certain people, liked certain ideas at a certain time at a certain place, and then would just decide, I'm tired of this. This is over. In fact, he even said at one point around 2012, 2013, this alt-right thing has run its course. There's no reason to refer to the alternative right anymore. It's over. We need to move on to a new brand. And Colin Liddell and myself both were saying, no, look, this is a brand that it's caught on with a lot of people. But Richard eventually pulled the plug on alternativeright.com. I don't want to rehash all of that. You can find out that information elsewhere. But that happened in 2013. I believe it was the very end of 2013. It was Christmas 2013. It was the Christmas Day purge of 2013. Gosh, 10 years ago. Full decade ago, when that crown, I hadn't yet, had the crown of infamy had not yet settled on my head, but I was working my way towards it. So things kind of went downhill after that. As far as influence, as far as people, I would hear sometimes afterwards, because alternative right continued to exist in a different form, on a different site, and and I think it continued to exercise some influence, but I think I was not aware of just how much influence was lost once Richard Spencer pulled the plug, and that whole area of influence, whatever it might be, whether Richard was whether he whether he glowed in the dark during that whole time, going all the way back to 2010. I don't know. Lots of strange stuff that I have a hard time understanding. But I'm not. I guess I won't go into any of that right now. I won't go into any of the gossipy stuff right now, because I'm too I'm too classy for that, as you can tell. My classy Burger King throne of infamy that I'm wearing. What happened sometimes after that was people would be like, "Oh yeah, I remember you. What happened to you?" Like, I think it was 1 year, was it 2015 or 2016? I think it was either 2015 or 2016 when Colin Liddell and myself appeared on Millennial Woes, Millennial, of course, which is people in the scene know all about the Millennial thing. But I remember we were on with Woes, whom I liked, whose broadcast I admired, because he strived for something that I think that I strive for too, which is emotional honesty. It's not like I'm coming. I don't like to come around and be all like in your face with how I'm feeling, but I don't want to just go around and act like I'm above all that, and be all high and mighty. I mean, if I'm feeling shitty, I want to be honest about that. And if I'm feeling sad about something or whatever, I mean, hell, that's what this video is all about. It's about emotional honesty. So I like that about Woes. And I remember, when we were on with Millennial Woes, this was during the time when he was still on YouTube. I remember a lot of people said, "Oh yeah, I remember those guys." It's like, I haven't gone anywhere. It was a little exasperating. I was like, I haven't gone anywhere. I haven't, I was removed from your radar screen. But I didn't go, I didn't leave, and I didn't disappear, Apparently I did disappear, but I didn't intend to disappear. I just disappeared from your perception of me. And I know some people, stayed with the new site and then started following me when I began broadcasting here on YouTube, for better or for worse, YouTube being what YouTube is. But things were precipitously in decline when the alt-right was maybe at reaching its peak as far as influence and power, because Richard Spencer was so incredibly wrong about the alt-right having been, having been a spent force, which is what he actually thought back in 2013. He didn't even use the term anymore. He would just say, vanguard or radix. He wouldn't say alternative right. He wouldn't refer to. And he was the one who had coined the phrase supposedly, although he supposedly got it from that Gottlieb guy. I can't remember his full name now. Who was a kind of mentor supposedly to Richard. But anyway, things things declined, and I was not really as entrenched a part of the alt-right scene when the alt-right was really enjoying its time in the sun in 2015 and 2016. The rise of Trump, Brexit passing, the sort of things that brought alt-right into not into the perspective of normies per se, but it brought it into the perspective of the press, the mainstream press. And I remember at first, after Trump won especially, it was like everyone was saying alt-right this, alt-right that. And at first I thought this is exciting, I've been a part of this, since it started. So I would actually type alt-right into a search engine just to see what they were saying next. But soon it just became so tiring, because every time alt-right was used, it was used pejoratively, it was used again in a way that was consonant with it, how one would use a slur. In this case, of course, it was an accepted slur. Slurs that are there are slurs that are considered unacceptable, and then if you want to just make a certain group that you don't like look bad, then a slur is acceptable. It's deemed acceptable by the principalities, powers, thrones, and dominions. So yeah. And then Charlottesville, which was ridiculous, which was a farce. I think I've spoken on it many times. There's no need to go into it any more than I have. And if you want my take on Charlottesville, I wrote a lot of articles about Charlottesville on my Substack page. So go to my Substack page and look up Charlottesville. I think I wrote maybe up to 9 or 10 articles about the whole event, and my experience there, and what really happened, as opposed to what was talked about as happening. But so as a result of what became of the alt-right, I was alt-right novelist. I hung on to the term because I thought to myself, why should I discard this term just because it's being abused right now? Just because people are saying are heaping scorn, hate, and derision upon this term. I didn't want to just run away. I don't just stop using a term because dishonest people are using the term in a dishonest way. But eventually, I guess I did stop using it, just because I just was like, even the people who were in that scene, they didn't call themselves alt-right or alternative right anymore. So, so I didn't see the point in keeping that that title. So I let my at first alternative right alt-right novelist was altrightnovelist.com was my author page, and then I just let that. I didn't. Eventually, I just let that go fallow, or whatever happens when you stop paying for a site. I just let it disappear. Um, Never stop writing. You know, I've between 2010 and now, almost 2024. Have never stopped writing. Never stopped publishing. I've written fiction and nonfiction. My fiction was originally published by Greg Johnson at Countercurrents, but due to a bunch of the stupid infighting, getting caught in the crossfire of all the stupid ego-driven infighting that took place amongst various potentates of the alt-right, or now dissident right scene. I got caught in the crossfire, and Greg decided, I don't want to publish your work anymore. So I was discontinued there, but I was picked up by Terror House Press, which published all of the things that were dropped, all of the works, maybe most prominently being the Columbine Pilgrim, but also Under the Nile, and other things that I wrote. Anyhow, never stopped writing. And you can go to my Amazon page and see the full panoply of my writings. And I've written fiction, I've written nonfiction, social commentary. My real ambition, I think, is to be a great fiction writer. And I've continued to write fiction, and have a niche following, but I'm not I know I'm not naive enough to think that people know my fiction writing. Just like, I'm not anything close to being a household name, okay? And even amongst people who are, affiliated with the quote unquote movement, it's like, oh yeah, like for a lot of them, it's an experience I've had. It's like, oh yeah, if I get more exposure because of something or other, like when I was on Morgoth's channel, when Morgoth interviewed me a couple of times, there are people saying, oh yeah, I remember Andy Nowicki. Whatever became of him? What do you mean, what became of me? Whatever became of me? I haven't gone anywhere. I'm here. I've always been here. But anyhow, that is what it is. I don't want to whine about it. I want to bitch about it. But I didn't know. I didn't think things would take this kind of turn, honestly. And as I'm being questioned right now. They're shining the bright light into my eyes. This is it. They're taking me in for interrogation. I'm being dragged away by the Stasi, by the SPLC Stasi, the ADL Stasi. Yeah, I mean, and you type my name in. That's another thing. Whew. Thank you for turning, not flashing those bright lights into my eyes. That's the thing about, you type in my name in a search engine, And you'll find, what I've found to be the case is, it's not the first thing that comes up, but maybe the fifth or sixth thing that comes up is that ADL hit piece that was published in like 20. I think right after Charlottesville. Maybe it was right before Charlottesville. Uh, 2017 or so. And lists all these people who are part of the alt right and people who are part of the alt light. Back then they said but they're all equally evil. And I didn't mind. I didn't mind them being making their list of infamy, because what do I care? What do I care what they think of me? Um, they're a deeply disingenuous organization. Uh, you know, I'm proud to be somebody whom they hate. I'm proud to be somebody whom they deem to be on the naughty list. Ditto for the SPLC, which seems to have lost some stature in recent years. But anyway, um, you get canceled just by proxy, more or less. I think I got canceled. I think if I just said what I'd said, wrote the things that I wrote, uh, but was never affiliated with, was never part of Richard Spencer's inner circle, if you will, at one point, for a limited length of time. Richard sort of moves on. He's like that. You're you're with him. You're his comrade. You're his buddy for a little while, and then he kind of moves on, and you're in his rearview mirror. Um, but just because Richard moved on didn't mean that anybody else, that the chroniclers of hate and of problematic people, they didn't move on. They never moved on. Antifa types, they never moved on. In fact, I wrote an article about how the Antifa called my job and tried to get me fired. But that article seems to have disappeared, as have many other things from what was used to be alternative right, now affirmative right, because Colin Liddell is against me now too. Colin Liddell thinks has gone all MSNBC, neoliberal, saying everything is part of a Russian plot, and Trump was a Russian agent, and he's actually said these kinds of things. If you doubt me, check out his website. I'm not going to tell you what it is. I'm not going to direct you to it, but you can find it. So through all this, and I haven't talked about personal stuff as much, but I suffered personally as well. Suffered in my marriage. My marriage ended. Something I never, ever, ever thought would happen. But it did. And now, I don't know. Now I am what I am. I am what I am. I'm the king. The king of nothing. The king of nothingness. No, I'm being overly dramatic right now. I don't want to be maudlin here, but I have to say that we're reaching the fact that we're reaching the end of another year, and in a month, in a little over a month, I'll be turning 53 years old. There is a certain awareness of being past my expiration date. And I've just got to say, things didn't play out the way that I thought they would. But, again, I'm not saying this to wallow in self-pity. I'm not saying this to be maudlin and to weep and moan and whatever. I'm just trying to be honest. And honestly, I'm still plugging on, because what else can one do? You gotta plug on. You gotta forge forward. And I am. I've got a new book coming out. It's supposed to come out in January. It's entitled The Rule of Wrath. It's the sequel to my book that was published last year called Muse, and it will be published by Terror House Press, which has published most of my fiction lately, as I've said earlier. So here I am, I'm still here. I'm going to be around in one way or another. Now, 2024, I'm going to stay the hell out of politics. And I hope nothing, pushes me into that mess, into that maelstrom. It's not worth it. It's not worth paying attention to. I'm going to make my way through 2024. Self-consciously shielding myself from those sorts of influences. I am not going to talk about politics. I am not going to talk about Donald Trump. I'm not going to talk about Joe Biden. I'm not going to talk about Democrats and Republicans. So if you want that kind of stuff, there's plenty of places to go for it. That's not going to be where I'm going to go, because I have come to the conclusion that it's not worth paying attention to. I hope that we are near the end of this. My last, or in the video that I recorded last night and I posted this morning. I don't know when I'm going to post this, but I said the one about are we in hell or purgatory? I hope that we're near the end of this age of what do I call it? This age of unease, this age of constant, almost inescapable disconsolation, almost inescapable demoralization, where you really honestly feel like we're falling apart. I think we need to have this out, and it needs to end. It needs to come to an end, and we need to move on to the thing to the light that's at the end of the tunnel. I'm ready for that to happen. I don't know if it's going to happen anytime soon, but I'm ready. I'm ready for it to end. I don't dig being in the midst of all of this. It permeates, even if you make a conscious effort to avoid it, it permeates through everything. And you're aware that you're still in it. You're still in it. And when I started, in 2010, 2011, 2012, even into 2013, 2014, it was not. There was controversy. There was people were getting canceled, somewhat. there was the woke thing was around, but man, things really kicked into high gear in 2015, 2016, and things have never been the same since then. And I'm ready for them. I'm ready for this. If this is the new normal, you can have it. I'm ready to move on past the new normal. That's where I'm at right now, gentlemen, and a couple of ladies who might be out there. That's where I'm at. And hopefully you've gotten something from this and it hasn't been totally self-indulgent. It's been a little self-indulgent, but I felt that it was worthwhile. Nevertheless, all the same. So, thanks for watching. Those of you who do faithfully watch my videos, those of you who even more so, who read my Substack page, not to make this into an advertisement for myself or anything, but sheesh, that's kind of tacky. But to end this whole heartfelt video, pouring out my guts to say, hey, don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to look me up on Substack and buy my books. My books are available on Amazon and also from Terror House Press. The ones that I published through Terror House Press, but the rest are all available on Amazon. So, not to end on that lame a note, but just to say thanks to people who have been around, and I'm going to continue to be around, but I don't know. I'm still negotiating how I'm going to be around because things do need to change. I'm going to need to switch things up a little bit, shake things up a little bit, but that said, I don't plan to be going anywhere. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Boy, if you watch this all the way through, then thanks. I salute you. All right. Talk to y'all later. Bye.